modern project in Cairo means an ancient Islamic cemetery, a UNESCO World Heritage Site no less, is being destroyed to make way for new roads and bridges. Well, Nervana Mahmoud is an independent analyst and host of This Week in Egypt, the podcast. She joins us now. Nervana, great to have you with us. Let's start with this Dutch exhibition then. Why exactly are the Egyptian authorities so upset about this? Isn't it flattering that some of the world's biggest stars, like Rihanna and Beyonce, are drawing their inspiration from ancient Egypt?
Thanks, Laura. There is a big difference between inspiration and cultural and historical plagiarism. Egypt is delighted and honored that it is an inspiration for the world. But let me put it in comparison. I have a dream catcher and a sag stick in my house. That doesn't mean that I have native Indian origin or culture. There is a subtle difference between the two. Egyptians understand that they inspire the world, but they reject identity theft. When saying that an ancient Egyptian culture is a black culture, when you see in social media people taking photos from temples, Egyptian temples, and make the color darker by software and saying it's a proof that ancient Egyptian culture is a black one, this is what we reject. Not just the authority, but the vast majority of Egyptians.
It's ironic, isn't it? Because I think the term cultural appropriation came from the United States, but here we see a very good example of it. When, Nervana, did this mischaracterization of history start? Is it a modern phenomenon? Is it unique to the United States?
Well, since the 18th century, funny enough, when the Western colonization spread in the Middle East and many showed interest in ancient Egyptian cultures and civilization, at that time they were interested of importing statues, obelisks from Egypt and plant it in all the Western capitals or many Western capitals. Now the Black American are taking a different twist and they are telling the Egyptian directly or indirectly, you either accept Egypt as a black culture or you are racist. Although racism exists in Egypt like all other countries, but in general, we are not a racist country. We are a multifaceted country with 7,000 years of civilization that many contributed to it. And we reject to narrow it into only black culture. Africa is a continent, not a color.
And a lot of Egyptians are really upset about this, aren't they, Nervana? We have seen a real outpouring of anger online. So people are upset about that on one hand, but at the same time today, an ancient Islamic cemetery is being bulldozed in Cairo. Why aren't Egyptians concerned about preserving this piece of history?
Well, actually, a lot of Egyptians, myself included, are concerned. My mother is buried in the same cemetery. All her family is buried are buried in the same cemetery. It evoked a lot of emotional, personal for me and for many, many Egyptians who have relatives buried in this cemetery. It's not about just the big flashy historical name. It's about ordinary Egyptian. And there is an outrage, but there is a distinction between identity and between the lack of, we need to modernize. Let's acknowledge that this cemetery existed when it was desert, when Cairo wasn't as huge as now. Now the cemetery is in the heart of Cairo. And from some perspective, some people say we need to modernize the country. We are overpopulated, congested Cairo. We have to do some modern solution for it. And the cemetery is stopping that. I want to compare it with when Egypt built the high dam in the 60s. It affected Abu Simbel temple. And then at that time, there was an outcry and there was a lot of effort to save the temple. And from your channel, I appeal to the world to help Egyptians who are now, the authority, I believe they are reconsidering and they are looking for solution. And if there is a lot of facilities, I'm sure we can reach some creative solution who save the cemetery or at least part part of it, and on the same time modernize the city as it should be.
Yeah, difficult decisions in Egypt, but as you say, Cairo is a city with a very rich history, but it is also a city where many people have to live. Fascinating, Nervana. Thank you very much indeed. We appreciate it. Nervana Mahmoud there.
Thank you.